Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association in BC. His website, ICBA.ca. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
The same government as we had before, only in a minority. Do you expect any different policies from the federal government? And if you do, how could they or would they affect contracting and construction?
Well, I think it's actually going to affect it negatively. So it seems like the Liberals plan to tack to the left in order to try to at least gain support of the NDP, or at least not have the NDP trigger an election. That's bad news for construction workers, especially in British Columbia, where 85% of construction workers are non-union. You can bet the NDP and Liberals will be hatching ways to try to direct some of their construction business to the 15% who are unionized and who are more likely to give political donations to those parties. And in fact, unions, bear in mind, were pretty much the biggest third-party spenders in this election. It wasn't the Coke billionaires, it wasn't oil money, it wasn't big business that was funding third parties in this election. It really was the unions, and you can bet that they'll now be coming back with their hand out, wanting their quid pro quo for those donations.
Now, what kind of a difference could that make to construction? Make it unaffordable, unlikely to happen, things like that? Yeah,
well, what we know is that when unions get involved, and the bureaucracy and what couple things happen. First of all, you reduce the number of bids on those projects because you take 85% of the bidders out of the market. You make it more expensive to actually build those things, and you transfer a lot of the risk to these private companies who have to price it into their accounts. So, not surprisingly, you look at the you take a look at the Island Highway project in the 90s. You take a look what's happening on Highway 1 today, and the Future Patella project. All of these are running millions, tens of millions over budget already because the NDP have done this very crafty union monopoly. It's bad news for taxpayers because if you're overspending on one project, it means money either runs out for another, or there's nowhere to go for that other one. So they need to come to some sort of decision here. Look, it's good that we have parties that are interested in building infrastructure. Certainly our construction companies want to help, but they have to do it in a way that is actually fiscally responsible and competitive. I'm not sure anything the federal Liberals have done in recent years would make anyone think that they're going to be fiscally competitive or responsible.
Now, taking a look at the Dees Island Tunnel that connects Vancouver.
You're old, Jim.
Yeah.
Dees Island Tunnel.
Yeah, well.
The George Massey Tunnel.
George Massey, I know.
That's what we kids call it today.
Yeah. Well, but anyway, they were going to replace it with a big bridge with lots of room to expand. Now they're talking about a tunnel that doesn't increase highway capacity. Why does BC keep doing this? Whenever they do a project, they never look at the future and future population growth. They tend to plan for today. By the time they build it, it was the solution for yesterday's problems. Why the lack of projection for stuff built in British Columbia? It seems that the last major project was the last one that really looked at it when they built a 10-lane bridge for the Port Mann.
Well, yeah. Look, there's this undercurrent out there of people who, they're concerned about climate change, which is a very noble thing. But they seem hell-bent on rushing energy transition beyond all realms of comprehension. And so they go out there and they say, if you build a bridge, that's just entrenching the car for future, decades and generations. You and I would say, well, of course, the car, whether it's in the current form or electric form or whatever, is going to be here for a long time. All of our transit runs on roads, so you need that option as well. Of course, what's the problem here? Of course that's going to happen. That is not, this is not how they see it. They want to choke people out of their cars. They want to punish people for driving, and to do that, they can't allow any more highway capacity. So they underbuild these things. And, shame on the NDP for going along with it. The NDP, of course, just didn't want to build a 10-lane bridge because it was Christy Clark's idea. Now they've gone to this tunnel plan, which is, pretty short-sighted. It's going to have the exact same number of lanes going, with rush hour as there is today. Doesn't do anything to really address the bottleneck. And again, puts people in a tunnel where, Vancouverites, have shown over the years they feel a little bit uncomfortable. So, Typical of government, short-sighted, giving in to the loudest naysayers instead of actually doing what's best for the entire economy.
Mm-hmm. Plus, haven't tens of millions of dollars already been spent on the bridge project?
Yeah, close to $100 million was already spent when they canceled those contracts. There's acres and acres of dirt piled up there waiting for it. There's resting pylons at one side of the tunnel that have just been abandoned by the NDP there. They blew close to $100 million by canceling that 10-lane bridge, which, by the way, the 10-lane bridge was coming in $900 million under budget. They had a budget of $3.5 billion. All indications are the contract was going to be about $2.6 billion to build it. An incredible value for that bridge, and a sign of how important it is to have competitive bids on a project. So they blew that. They're going to end up spending more than $2.6 billion on this tunnel. If it's even ever built, John Horgan seems more like he just wants to delay it as long as possible. There's talk now that we may not even see it open for another decade.
Well, this government seems pretty famous for its delays. Look at how poorly the legal pot industry has been rolled out in BC. Delay. We were supposed to get ride sharing, delay on that. It seems to be nothing gets done. Is that frustrating for business?
Yeah, but what do you expect from a group of people who've never run a business before? It's not like the NDP is full of small business owners and entrepreneurs and go-getters. It's full of union hacks, activists, people who have worked in the public sector their whole lives. You'd be hard-pressed to find any kind of business acumen in that group. And so they don't understand the value of a dollar. And, they've never had to, sweat and fear that they can pay their employees whose families are relying on them. They never had to sign the front of the check and, know that they're not getting paid because they're making sacrifices to make sure everyone else is. I think a little bit of business experience would do a whole world of good in that caucus.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Bateman Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the 2019 drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. ICBC, the mandatory insurer for vehicles in British Columbia, releasing their annual statement. They're going to be $1.5 billion in the hole, roughly. And, of course, they're hiking rates left, right, and center. Is business being hurt by this?
Yeah, absolutely. We're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg emerge from the sea here, and there is a lot going on. So we're already starting to hear from our member companies that it's far more expensive to insure their vehicles. First of all, business rates are going to go up 4% a year faster. That's on top of what it goes up for everyone else. So that's a hit right there. Second of all, construction really, it's a young person's business. If you have an apprentice, if you're working with people new to the industry, they're driving your trucks, you have to insure them. And ICBC is saying, no, young drivers are terrible, evil human beings who should pay far more money. We're going to balance our budget on the backs of a bunch of kids. Scary, difficult for these guys to deal with, and it's going to cost companies thousands and thousands of dollars. All to placate David Eby's claims that there's some sort of a dumpster fire there that needs to be put out.
Well, also for construction, what's your alternative to using large vehicles that run on fossil fuels right now to transport your goods? I don't see a lot of workers carrying their rebar on Skytrain.
No, exactly. And, we've kind of joked around here that if this gets any worse, we may actually have to have a construction day on Skytrain where people bring rebar and ladders and cement mixers and, all this stuff onto one of these trains and show people just how stupid this is. No, there is no option. These work trucks exist for a reason. Someday they'll be electrified, I'm sure, and, a little bit, even fewer greenhouse gas emissions. But right now, we don't have that option. So, yeah, it's frustrating for us as a construction association. It's frustrating for our members because it's yet another cost being added to them by the NDP. And it's got to be, concerning if you're, it's coming to the point now where if you have a choice between a younger employee and an older one, do the older ones now get a little bit more look because, younger ones are so expensive to insure on automobiles? That's not fair either. So lots to deal with in this. I'm not impressed at all with how David Eby is going about it. He's picked a fight with the courts. The courts have overruled him. He's picked a fight with the trial lawyers claiming they're costing billions. It turns out those billions are actually settlements to victims. So he's, fudging the numbers there, and he's fudging the numbers about high-paid people in the ICBC bureaucracy. It's far more high-paid people there than there were under the BC Liberals. So typical David Eby, he just kind of is all smoke and mirrors and hopes that you don't really take the time to find out the truth.
Is ICBC overpopulated with high-paid bureaucrats, and would private insurance be run a whole lot leaner and meaner?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, private insurance, you wouldn't have the same kind of broker program you have now. You could get quotes online. Imagine actually renewing your insurance online. What a wonderful thing that would be. Think about that if you were a conscientious buyer being able to get multiple bids for your insurance. There's a whole bunch of things that they would do differently than they do today. But, ICBC, the truth is David Eby is a slave to his ICBC union buddies. He doesn't want to do anything to hurt their position. I say if the unions love it so much, let the unions buy ICBC, open it up to competition, and let the open market go at it and see how it goes.
Are there any solutions to ICBC that could perhaps reduce their deficit, or should we just get rid of it right off that bill and go to private insurance?
Yeah, I think a highly regulated industry is the way to go. Look, ICBC is very valuable. It has tons of data, has tons of information, has every driver in the province currently on its program by law. So, it is extremely valuable. There would be a buyer for ICBC, even if you open it up to competition. But the bottom line here is have a heavily regulated industry, but open it up. Let people shop around for a better bid. Chances are there'll be someone out there willing to take a risk on young construction drivers, and offer a fairer rate than what we're seeing from ICBC. It's just a matter of finding those companies, letting them into our market, and enjoying the rewards of actual real competition.
Well, I always find it amazing that my parents could insure 9 vehicles on their farm for less money than I paid for a single insurance for a good driver in BC.
Yeah, I find it amazing when kids are being told that they have to spend $6,000 a year to insure a car that's worth $2,000. It just does not make any sense. That is ludicrous. But, that is the ICBC's little world, and that's what happens when you don't have proper competition.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cyprusdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, BC has enjoyed one of the best economies in Canada for several years. Is that outlook going to continue?
Things are slowing down in the BC economy, and people need to get ready. So the Business Council of BC continues to revise down its growth estimates. There's deep concern that retail numbers now have flatlined. Real estate's bounced back a little bit, but nowhere near what it was a couple of years ago. The exports, the dollar, things, the man in the White House, those are all seemingly stacked against British Columbia continuing to really boom. And you have a government who has doubled the tax burden on businesses in the past 2 years, and then is surprised when that causes a drag on the economy. So you have the ICBC decision costing $400 million. You have a very real possibility of Carol James not being able to hold this budget in surplus after blowing through a $2.5 billion surplus, plus blowing through billions more in taxes. All of these little chickens come home to roost at some point. I fear it may be sooner than later.
Now, we keep wondering when we're going to see the construction of the Broadway corridor, Skytrain. Is that a problem for contractors not knowing when and where that's going to get going?
Yeah, look, Patello Bridge, we thought we'd hear by now. It's kind of out there in the ether. I think some of these big companies are favorites for these contracts, and let's recall, they're down to 2 bidders on each of them, where you'd prefer to have, 5 or 6 so that they could be each getting competitive pricing. I think they're having problems finding subcontracts, subtrades to work on it. Remember, if you get a contract to work on the Broadway subway, you have to fire all your employees, send them over to one of the government's 19 chosen unions, have them hired by a government crown corp, and assigned back to you. Maybe they'll get assigned back to you by these building trades unions. Chances are you're going to get a bunch of union flunkies instead, and maybe a couple of your staff mixed in. That's a hard sell for a lot of subtrades who, in a time of a labor shortage, want to keep their employees close. Have built relationships with them over the years. The idea that they have to actually fire their employees so they can work on a government project and be forced to join a union is offensive to them.
Jordan, we've talked about it in the past, and I always wondered, how come Skytrain can't be a continuous construction project where every line adds just 1 or 2 stations a year? If we would have done that back in 1986, we'd have Skytrain out to White Rock and Abbotsford by now, wouldn't we?
Yeah, you'd have to ask the provincial government and TransLink why they don't make it a priority. I've never really understood why these governments don't have just dedicated envelopes for transportation infrastructure. Every year we're going to spend whatever it is, $1.5 billion on transportation infrastructure, and instead they kind of pick and choose winners and losers, what gets them the most political gain. Although, I may have just answered my question there. Governments really aren't in the business of building infrastructure as much as they're in the business of trying to get themselves reelected.
And of course, one question I've always wondered is, how come we don't build giant firefighting airplanes like the Martin Mars water bomber with modern turboprop engines and sell those to the world? There seems to be a big demand for forest fire fighting equipment these days.
Yeah, I'm not a pilot, so I don't know. I'm not going to comment on the aerodynamics of that, but yeah, look, there's a bigger issue here, and I know a lot of people link, forest fires back to climate change, and whether you do or don't, I do think that climate change does provide a chance to make money off of mitigating issues. BC is a very small player when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions. Canada is a very small player globally. We should be looking at ways we can better mitigate against climate change, be preparing our communities for higher sea levels or for forest fires or for extreme weather. That's the way we can actually, you're right, make some money by exporting that technology and that know-how to other places. But, we've got to get our ducks in a row first.
Jordan, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, Vice President of Communications and Marketing for the Independent Contractors and Business Association. Their website, icba.ca. If you have any questions for Jordan or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.